Season 11 of SpongeBob is probably the weirdest season. A lot of the episodes are good, but a lot of them are also pretty bad. A lot of the episodes are weird and have really wacky, off-the-wall elements to them. And while I definitely wouldn't say I like this season, I don't hate it. But some of the episodes, including my last place spot, are pretty bad. Ink Lemonade sucks, it's annoying, Patrick is an asshole. Yeah, you've probably heard every complaint about this episode, so I'm just going to leave it here and say that this episode is as bad as everybody says it is. Pat the Horse is such a weird episode that I can't believe got stretched out to 11 minutes. Patrick acts like a horse for the whole episode and gets involved in a race with other fake horses. Who thought of this episode, and why do not as many people hate it as much as me? Squirrel Jelly is the episode I think of immediately when I think of Sandy going way too far. She's not one of my favorite characters, but she never used to be one of my least favorite until later seasons. She's just so unlikable now. I don't know why Cuddle E-Hugs exists. It's strange and has absolutely nothing going for it. Nothing else to say, it's just a bad episode. Chef Bob is something that I can understand why people think it's funny, but it's just not my type of humor. The puppet is just really annoying, and everyone wanting to get her roasted almost kind of came across as weird to me. Wow, season 11 really has some bad episodes, and this is just the beginning of them. Appointment TV is an episode where I actually stopped watching halfway because I thought to myself, wait, this is literally just overbooked. There's been episodes that lack originality that ranked higher on my list, but that's because the original was good. But I don't like overbooked either, so a ripoff was never going to be good. I'd rather not talk about Don't Feed the Clowns. Okay, thank you, let's move on. Old Man Patrick, I'd say, is a tier above Don't Feed the Clowns, but that doesn't mean it's not bad. This episode is super boring, and I can't really remember anything that happened. So yeah, bad, forgettable episode. Krabby Patty Feature Creature had a cool premise, but it just had too much weird, gross-out humor for my liking. But the Last Man Standing kind of apocalypse vibe going on was pretty enjoyable. Bunny Hunt is an episode I'm not really sure what happens in it. It was boring and forgettable, which is why it's ranked so low. Sanitation Insanity is a pretty mid episode. SpongeBob and Squidward do some cleaning, and Mr. Krabs is an asshole. This episode is not good, but it's not as bad as some of the other episodes in this season. Grandmom's the World is an episode I did not find boring. I just didn't really like the character of Plankton's grandma. She was annoying, and the whole episode was about her. Also, do you expect me to believe Mr. Krabs trusted Plankton with a Krusty Krab? Yeah, right. Library Cards is just a worse Patrick Smartpants. Instead of actually being about Patrick being smart, it's about his head being too big. I mean, why? They could have done something much better than making the second half about getting Patrick's big brain to shrink. Missed potential, kind of a theme with SpongeBob's library. Cave Dwelling Sponge had some good parts, but I just didn't like the cave SpongeBob. He was annoying, and why am I supposed to care about someone who can't talk and is just a mindless version of SpongeBob? I mean, SpongeBob is already mindless enough. Surf and Turf is really just an episode that exists. There's no other way to put it. I mean, pretty forgettable. Not really much to say here. I like the name. Alright, I liked Pickles, but entire episode about Bubble Bass is just too much. At least he's not in it most of the time. SpongeBob and Patrick are way more moronic than usual in Moving Bubble Bass, and honestly, I don't mind it, because Bubble Bass deserves any bad thing coming to him. Watching There's a Sponge in My Soup, I was flabbergasted at whatever I was watching. A bunch of hippies started living in a soup SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs made, and they end up ruining their restaurant, and Mr. Krabs, SpongeBob, and Squidward had to exorcise the hippies with a drum circle. Yeah, it's as crazy as it sounds, but it was pretty enjoyable and one of the most creative episodes to date. Drive Happy is an episode with SpongeBob getting a self-driving car, but it doesn't listen to him. So it's basically all those spatula episodes, but with a car. At least they're trying something new, I guess. I don't really have much to say about this one, it's fine. No Pictures Please is the first one on the list that's part of the title zone. I actually like the idea because it gives an excuse to go off the wall crazy. But this one was kinda tame, not really much happened, and it was more about Patrick giving a tour than anything title zone-y. The Clam Whisperer is up next. It's literally just a bunch of clams, I don't know, it's fine. Serious question, what the hell happened in Call the Cops? There's so much going on, yet so little being accomplished. Far from bad, but I would like a little organization in my cartoon episodes. I actually somewhat enjoy Patnocchio. I know some people don't, but Pinocchio is one of my favorite Disney movies, and I like that SpongeBob did a parody of it. I get the criticisms though. It doesn't really do anything new, and the Goofy Goober setting is completely wasted. I still personally enjoy it though. Chatterbox Gary is a cool concept. Gary can talk. Being the only character in the show who can't talk, it's interesting to see how he expresses himself with his voice. But I think it shows how well animated he is when we already know his personality before he could talk. This just confirms it. I enjoyed the different ways SpongeBob and Squidward tried to get Mr. Krabs to do a checkup, and the episode was fun. But SpongeBob is oddly violent here. His methods were brutal and pretty cruel. But other than a minor flaw, this one's pretty okay. Larry the Floor Manager shows why I'm not a massive Larry fan. He's just kind of an asshole, and I don't like people like him in real life. But this is a cartoon, so who gives a shit? The Krusty Krab as a gym is an interesting idea, and it executes it fairly well. It's enjoyable to watch, but it doesn't do anything remarkable, which is why it's kinda in the middle of this list. Goons on the Moon is a good special episode. Sandy and a bunch of her subjects go to the moon, and Squidward accidentally gets caught up in it. I like the visuals, and anytime one of the characters goes to space, it's enjoyable. My only problem is that I didn't like the new characters that much. I mean, why don't you just pick other characters that we all know? Spin the Bottle is a solid episode where Plankton turns into a genie. It's weird how everyone is so gullible, but I like the concept, and Plankton's schemes really do just get better and better. The string is really just pulling a string, huh? The visuals carry this one, and it is just fun to watch. A lot of these episodes where the visuals are like the only appeal are good, but I mean, I just can't put it higher because it makes literally no sense. I mean, what happened here? A string is the entire town? I mean, it just got crazier and crazier to the point where I was like, alright, this is kind of getting stupid now. Stuck on the Roof is pretty relatable, which is why it's so low. Get out of my face. I shouldn't need to think about my life watching SpongeBob. It's really impossible to recreate Mermaid and Barnacle Boy 3. They keep trying to bring Man Ray back, but they just keep failing. We need to stop expecting that and realize that Man Ray Returns is enjoyable, just not as enjoyable. I like Spot enough, and I like the idea of Plankton coming to terms with having children. Except he doesn't actually, so I don't really see the point in this one other than just to bring Spot back. Oh well, it was still fun to watch. The Grill is Gone is such a random episode. A bunch of kids steal the grill for a race car, and then they duel it out to get the grill back. This one is just really fun, and I like how much Mr. Krabs actually cares about his grill. Another SpongeBob shrinking episode. God damn, they really like this concept. I do too, honestly, and this is one of my favorites. I like how the mini versions turn on SpongeBob and Patrick. It gives it new life and separates it from other episodes where there's small people involved. Alright, I know whale watching is not supposed to be this high, but I just think the teenagers are funny. It's super inaccurate around where I live, so it ends up being really funny for me. I also enjoyed the stop motion sequence. I just like this episode because of my sense of humor. Don't really expect others to like it as much. Bottle Burglars is a fun Plankton formula episode. The season doesn't have as much Plankton trying to get the formula as other seasons, but when it does, it's enjoyable. I like this one because SpongeBob and Squidward are the ones trying to steal the formula back, because Plankton already did it. It's a nice spin on things, and the episode is good. High sea diving was a really cool concept about trash in the water. But I wish they actually focused on littering and trash in the water instead of Old Man Jenkins. I mean, the show is about water. It's kind of weird we haven't had an episode about trash yet. But the episode we got was still pretty fun. Doodle Dimension is one of the 2 episodes this season where an old character comes back. And yeah, I get it, it's cheap and unoriginal, but I was cracking up the whole time. SpongeBob and Patrick are both hilarious, and I love the creative ways of fighting Doodle Bob. I was never bored in this episode. Bubble Town is the 2nd episode of the season where an old character comes back. This time it's Bubble Buddy. I like an idea of a bubble civilization, even though it doesn't make sense. But the good part was the end, where SpongeBob straight up murdered everyone and destroyed the whole town. I mean, he actually went to bubble jail. Great episode. The SpongeBob and Sandy episodes, where it's just them, is easy to mess up, but Shopping List does a great job. All the items on the list are strange, but it's really fun to watch the 2 get them. I also enjoyed how Mr. Krabs got karma after sending SpongeBob on a completely absurd list. I like seeing odd pair-ups, and Girls' Night Out does it great. Sandy, Mrs. Puff, Karen, and Pearl is a great pair-up, and I like how it's just them. It's different and makes for a fun episode. I could have put this higher, but I just enjoy the next 10 a bit better, so Girls' Night Out just barely misses out on the top 10. The Night Patty is a great Twilight Zone episode. I love all the unique characters in the night version of the Krusty Krab, and I love how the monsters thought the Krabby Patty was disgusting. It was just a unique look on the Krusty Krab, and that's enough to get it into the top 10. Krusty Cleaners is a hilarious episode that's full of clever visual jokes. There's never a dull moment, and it's one of the most gag-centered episodes in the series. There's a lot going on, but nothing feels out of place, and everything fits perfectly. It's shocking how they could manage everything, but that's what the show does best. I love the concept of Mustard O' Mine. A cave full of condiment ores is just so cool. The best parts are just SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick exploring the mine looking for the mustard ore. It makes for such cool ore version of condiments, and it results in a great episode. Mr. Krabs' protection of the formula and hatred of Plankton goes to a completely new level in Plankton paranoia. I honestly like this a lot more than I thought I would. Seeing Mr. Krabs go absolutely insane about Plankton is a really cool concept, considering Mr. Krabs doesn't really take Plankton that seriously when it comes to his ability of stealing the formula. This episode definitely impressed me, and I'll be coming back to it. It baffles me that this show managed to make an entire episode about the My Leg joke. It sounds like My Leg is just another modern SpongeBob example of using classic jokes and characters from old SpongeBob and reusing them. But this episode does this so well. It makes sure there's plenty of the My Leg joke, but it also makes sure there's another story, and Fred wanting to injure himself because he's in love with a doctor. I totally get if this is in your top 5. Teacher's Pets is just an 11-minute compilation of Plankton and Mr. Krabs fighting with each other, but the way these 2 just persistently try and piss each other off is just hilarious. This is another gag-filled episode and another great one. Almost every joke cracks you up, and the non-stop comedy makes it so you're never bored. Karen's Virus is carried by its phenomenal visuals. It might be bold to say, but this might be the most visually appealing SpongeBob episode ever. You can't look away from the colorful and detail-filled setting of Karen's computer, but it also makes sure to have an interesting story. Well, as interesting as a SpongeBob story can be. SpongeBob teams up with Buff Plankton to try and get rid of a virus in Karen. The story is solid, but the visuals are definitely the main appeal. Scavenger Pants is just so damn creative. I love the concept. It opens up so much opportunities and places that SpongeBob and Patrick can go. And it does not disappoint. I mean, they literally go and capture the Loch Ness Monster. Seeing Squidward plan to pick the most impossible things to find just for SpongeBob and Patrick to find it immediately is hilarious every single time. This episode is definitely top 3 worthy. I really wanted to put Squid Noir as number 1, but I couldn't. Number 1 is one of the best episodes in a while, but Squid Noir is just a nice little parody of noir movies. The beginning of this episode made it out to be just another boring episode, but once the screen turned black and white, I knew I was going to love this one. I love noir parodies, and even actual noir I don't hate. The melodramatic monologues and the old school vibe just makes this episode so much better. The different ways Squidward and SpongeBob interrogated everyone kept on getting better as well, and overall this episode was just an instant classic. The Legend of Bikini Bottom is already an all-time great SpongeBob episode. In fact, it's one of the best specials ever. The main appeal of the episode is the animation. The stop motion looks awesome, and they do so much great things with it. It's similar to It's a SpongeBob Christmas, but it's a lot better because of the amazing visuals. The ending scene with the Flying Dutchman pulling out all the stops to try and make SpongeBob squared was insane. While the animation was great, I also really enjoyed the plot. SpongeBob completely switching up and being scared of nothing was fun, and the different ways that people in Bikini Bottom tried to scare everyone were also fun. This episode really has no flaws. Honestly, probably the first 10 out of 10 episodes since Season 4. That's a pretty great accomplishment if you ask me.